You had an obligation.
We continue with the severe thunderstorm watch in effect for a huge chunk of the area through 8, but the reason that we're cutting in right now is because we now have a tornado warning. We've watched this storm evolve in the southern part of our area, and the rotation strengthened enough that the National Weather Service decided to put a tornado warning on it. Tornado warnings in effect Taylor and Greene County. I've got Jeremy and Rick DeLuca with me here tonight as we're going to continue to analyze these storms. Jeremy's manning radar right now. And Jeremy, one of the things we've noticed on this storm, by the way, the tornado warnings until 5:25 Central or 6:25 Eastern, there was a merger that occurred with another storm, and that the storm that's west of Campbellsville kind of was trying to get itself organized, and now it does look like it's a little bit more organized. And I would say if you're in Greensburg, now's the time to take your tornado safety precautions.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. We have been watching this storm for some time. You called it about 20 minutes ago that this would have the potential of popping a tornado warning, but that's exactly what we're seeing. This storm located very close to the Greene and Taylor County line. If you live in Summersville, you need to be in your safe place right now. Greensburg, take shelter immediately. This storm is dropping towards the south-southeast, so it is moving towards the town of Greensburg. Campbellsville, it looks like you're going to be in the hail core of the storm, some torrential rain and a ton of lightning also with this. We'll put a quick track on it as, again, the most dangerous portion of that storm located very close to the town of Summersville. It's dropping towards the southeast at about 25 to 30 miles per hour. You can see some of the locations that will be impacted by that storm. And look out towards the Roachville area 16 minutes from now, Gresham about 20 minutes from now, and out towards the Mount Gilead area 27 minutes from now.
And you know, the storm has shown really a good sign of spinning up in the rotation over the last couple of frames here. Remember, when we look for tornado warnings, what we try to look for is the hook that forms on the western edge of the storm. What makes this kind of interesting here, Jeremy, let's go back to about 30 minutes or so. What you'll notice is it was actually a cell merger. There was a cell that kind of pushed its way into the storm, and when that occurred, a lot of times what will happen is this will impart some energy actually to the thunderstorms, and that is really what happened here. So we've got that storm now that's bearing down on Greensburg. If you live in Greensburg, it is time to take your tornado safety precautions right now. I need you to get downstairs. You want to be underneath something, the center part of your house, and please keep away from windows. Remember, windows in a tornado warning is obviously the worst possible place you can be with the potential for flying glass. Rick is also looking at our 3D radar. And Rick, I'm going to come over to you here real quick. Let us know what you're seeing right now on StormView 3D, but it sure looks like a solid signature north of Greensburg right now. You got the split screen going?
Absolutely. On the left-hand side, you're looking at the basic reflectivity that you typically always see when we're looking at thunderstorms. But on the right-hand side, these are the velocities, which allows us to look at the winds and what they're doing with inside the storm. And you can clearly see those greens and those reds sort of close together. Not a real tight signature, but definitely enough rotation within this storm that it does mean business. So areas like Somerville, you need to be in your safe place. Same story if you live in Greensburg. I'm going to just toss out some of these roads and rattle them off. So if you live along some of these roads, if they do sort of ring a bell, make sure you're in your safe place. Marshall Ridge Road, that's one of the locations. Campbellsville Road. Also, Columbia Highway. If you live in along Columbia Highway or have some friends and family in that location, make sure you give them a heads up, let them know this storm is moving in their direction, and it is very powerful, possibly producing a tornado.
Rick, if you could, take me back over to single mode here right now real quickly. And what I want to see is normalized rotations, if you could, so we can kind of get an assessment of what's going on from a rotation standpoint. What you'll notice here is right near the Summersville area, and that's kind of that area that Rick was talking about. You can see that rotation showing up really, really well here, what we refer to as normalized rotation. This is Greensburg here. So just north of Greensburg. Rick, what road are we here coming out of Greensburg?
That one is Campbellsville Road.
Okay, so if you're on Campbellsville Road, between Campbellsville and Greensburg, we're basically talking about Campbellsville Road, about 2 miles out of town from Greensburg. This is where the area of rotation is, and it looks like it's expanded just a little bit here. I need you to get into the interior portion of your house right now in Greensburg. This is not that time where you want to be, let's say, going outside to look at the storms. And look, we know that that's kind of one of the things that people do is they tend to get fascinated by the storms, so they'll look at them. But this is not the time to do that. Rick, take me back over to normalized rotation. I want to put my finger on the area where we're seeing the rotation. Now, if you could take me over to correlation coefficient. What this is going to do is allow me to see if any debris is being lofted by that thunderstorm right now. So Rick's put a marker on that storm. From a debris standpoint, guys, I'm not seeing any lofted debris right now, which is a good signal, but nonetheless here, still a strong storm here near the Greensburg area.
Right, and watching the storm track down to the south and to the east, just a good idea. Go ahead and get in your safe place. We're going to switch back over now to our storm view. Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of lightning with this storm. In fact, so much that we're going to have to turn it off just so you can actually see through to the storm itself. So a tornado warning ongoing. We're going to keep you up to date with this one as it continues down to the south and to the east until 5:25, and that is Central Time. So this thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. It's 8 miles north of Greensburg, moving to the south at 30 miles an hour. So let's put a tracker on that one at 30 miles an hour and let you know which locations need to be on guard for the potential for this tornado. It looks like Buff Bloom, 3 minutes away, Roachville, 9 minutes, Mount Gilead, 18 minutes, then Milltown, 23 to 25 minutes. This storm will be approaching your area.
I want to kind of look at this real quickly. I'm going to take over radar here for a second just so I can get a sense of what we're looking at on this storm. I'm going to take off the actual storm track and kind of what we refer to as rock. I want to rock back a few frames and take a look at where the outflow boundary is with respect to the thunderstorm. We're going back here a little bit. You know, what's interesting, there's a couple of interesting parts to this, is that storm is riding that outflow boundary. See that thing right near Magnolia? That arcs right into the thunderstorm here, and it looks like that spin up is occurring right along where that outflow boundary, and I'll draw that outflow boundary where it draws right into the thunderstorm. A lot of times, excuse me, what will happen is we'll see an increased area of rotation right as that outflow boundary intersects with the thunderstorm. So the National Weather Service is warning the part of the storm specifically just northeast of Greensburg. But, you know, it's interesting. There may be a secondary area of rotation, even again developing behind it just south of Wards. This has been a storm that's cycled here a little bit at times. So we'll have to watch. The area that could be producing a tornado right now would be east-northeast of Greensburg. And, you know, the sad thing here, I think, for us tonight is this is the beginning of what's going to be a long night, because I think we're going to see another round of strong to severe storms moving across the area.
Right, this is associated with this first round of storms, but a secondary storm system is beginning to form basically off to our north and to our west, and Mark is highlighting it right here. You can see they are already severe, and these will eventually merge, come together into one line, a complex of storms, and eventually move across the area, thinking around midnight, after midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I would say, I feel like 2 o'clock's probably the best time frame. The thing that's going to make this somewhat complicated here is there's 3 distinct clusters of severe thunderstorms. One that's northwest of Milwaukee, one that's south of Chicago, and then there's this kind of large thunderstorm that's severe. It's not really a cluster per se, but it's developed over northern northern Missouri. And then the question is going to become is how do these all come together? Do they form individual lines? Do they form into one larger line? Because if they form into a larger line, what would happen is that would increase the threat for, let's say, a widespread destructive wind event. If they come through in individual segments, then you could actually get into breaks.
Right.
In a scenario where maybe you get the strong to severe storms and then maybe a couple miles to your east they don't. So this is going to be really important to see how these come together during the next few hours. And by the way, so you know, we're doing our severe weather coverage in multiple platforms here. We're on air and on TV like you always get to see, and you may actually see me walk around with my camera. I use Periscope as well, so you can kind of see what's going on behind the scenes during our coverage. Also, Twitter, Mark Weinberg WX. You can follow me there, or on Facebook, Mark Weinberg. And Jeremy is also here as well, and Jeremy's pushing images towards our social media sites as well. So you kind of get the sense from a lot of different angles of what we're doing in here. And Rick, in that time frame, you've been taking a look at that storm. You know, one of the other threats you get from a potential tornado warned storm is hail. And this guy looks like that may be ramping that threat up.
Absolutely. Actually, we're on 3D right now. We have the velocity on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I'm putting in VIL, which is just an indication of vertically integrated liquid. And it does indicate that we have some larger hail, the possibility of that just to the east of Summersville, which could potentially be up to 2 inches in diameter. So this storm system has multiple threats. A, it could be producing a tornado, and also the hail is a serious threat with this one as well. And as Mark was mentioning, it's something you don't want to take easily. This storm does mean business, so if you live inside that red box, you need to be in your safe place immediately. Agreed.
Greensburg right now, tornado safety precautions are a must here. And I want to see if we could, Jeremy, on the 3D, can we go over to single mode here real quickly? I just would like to see how high that reflectivity's come up on that storm, because it looks like it popped there for a while. So go back maybe a scan. Yeah, it looked like it produced a fairly significant hail core, but that hail core may have descended down to the ground to the west of Campbellsville. Also, what do you think just north of Greensburg? Looks like we may be... looks like there may be rain that's getting pulled into that storm south of Greensburg right now, which could weaken off that rotation just a little bit.
That's what it looks like, Mark. You can see that little yellow cell there just to the south of Greensburg. That's the shower that's being ingested into the storm. It could actually help to reduce that risk of rotation and the tornadic probabilities with that. As Mark mentioned, that hail core, which you saw at least for a little while in purple, located between Summersville and Campbellsville, about 10 minutes ago, has really come down as well. So that also shows at least some broad weakening with that storm. Some of the roads that we're concerned with, though, just north of Greensburg, that main artery that does run basically from Campbellsville to Greensburg along Campbellsville Road, that's US 68. That's where that rotation is located right now.
I mean, it's right over Greensburg. If you live in Greensburg, you've got to take your tornado safety precautions. And I know a lot of times people tend to go outside to get a look at the storm. Look, I'm not. We're aware, obviously, that thunderstorms draw attention. But at the same time, one of the things I try to do is let you know when it's time to look and when it's time to not look. And it's not the time to look here in Greensburg. It just isn't. In motion, Jeremy, you really can see how that storm wrapped up and then kind of made a move directly south as it's continued with its rotation center. What's also interesting, if you look on the back edge of that storm, south of Raywick, you could even see as it was trying to develop more areas of rotation. But solid rotation here continues right over Greensburg. I mean, this is on the east side of Greensburg right now.
And no ground truth to this yet. Again, what we've got is we've got rotation that is significant in this storm. It still looks fairly broad, but also keep in mind that what we're looking at, the portion of the storm that we're looking at, it's about 4,000 feet above the ground. So we don't necessarily have ground truth, but certainly enough broad rotation aloft to warrant that warning.
And I'm going to take us back over to storm view.
This is interesting, Mark. I'm sorry, but we want to point out that the latest velocity signature just came in. It's really popping on that northeastern side of Greensburg.
And that looks like that may be developing slightly north of that initial rotation center, which has now gone south of the state road right there. It's interesting. There's no question there's definitely some rotation enhancement there.
Yeah, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50 to 60 knots, not gate to gate, but rotation above the ground. So, that's 70, 80 mile per hour winds a short distance above the ground. Okay,
and I'm going to go back over now to Storm View HD so we can look at this from a different perspective here. One of the things that's starting to occur within this storm again is that area rotation looks like it's now starting to get wrapped again in rainfall. And when that happens, a lot of times when you wrap a storm in rain, remember these storms basically as fuel use heat. So if the storm actually starts to get wrapped in rain, what that means is that it could be cutting itself somewhat off from the fuel here. Green-Taylor County remain under a tornado warning until 5:25. This is the core of the storm. So the hail, if that was to be occurring right now, and it has come down just a little bit, but just to the south and west of Campbellsville on 68 here is where that hail core is going to be the largest. Notice, really, it's about to cross 68 right now between Campbellsville and Greensburg, just off to the northeast of Greensburg. So the most concerning area of rotation is closer to Greensburg. The most concerning area of hail would be between Greensburg and Campbellsville. Now, radar is estimating 3.5 inches. I got to tell you, I don't think the storm's producing 3.5-inch hail, but I do think golf balls could potentially be on the table. Area of rotation going right over the eastern side of Greensburg shows up really, really well here as you look at the storm velocity. Notice green meaning inbound. The red means outbound. So if you're looking here, that kind of shows you where that area of rotation is. And what we're doing is we're actually putting a storm track specifically on that rotation area rather than the core of the storm, because I want you to know where that area of rotation is and when it's going to be in your area. So this storm track is not for the core of the storm. This is for the potential tornado area. So Gresham, 10 minutes from now, potential for a tornado. Near the Bramlett area, 17 minutes from now. Milltown, 26 minutes from now. Bliss, 36, and if it holds together, Flatwood, it'll be in 42 minutes from now. The tornado warning remains in effect for another 15 minutes or so. This has been just simply absolute lightning fest on these storms. Has the Weather Service guys given any update? It looks like the shape of that may be a little bit different. Are we getting any updates in terms of the storm?
Yeah, well, they're going to continue with the tornado warning, it looks like, and they're also indicating that you're talking about that hail potential. They're forecasting 1.5 inch hail possible for Green and Taylor counties. But basically, they're continuing the warning based on radar. We still don't have any ground truth, but spotters in the area are reporting winds of 60 to 65 miles per hour near that storm.
Okay, so we've got 60 to 65 mile an hour winds right now, Taylor County with nickel-sized hail. That's from Storm Spotters officially. That's right near where that area rotation is. You know, one of the things about this is I think it could be, you know, even if we're talking about a tornado, the winds are not going to be that much different than what we're talking about from straight line winds, where we would be talking about weaker side here, which could do 65, 75, 85 mile an hour winds. We're not talking about one of those monster kind. So, you know, Greensburg along 68 there, that's that area of rotation that we're going to have to watch, although the storm itself does appear to be, in a sense, ingesting some not as favorable air. It's definitely gotten itself caught up in some rain right now.
And we know that this is not a really tornado-conducive environment. They did issue a severe thunderstorm watch early this afternoon, and that was for the potential of severe thunderstorms. The environment not quite what you would expect for a widespread tornadic situation. Right. But anytime you have severe thunderstorms, you have boundaries interacting. There's always that possibility of a spin-up.
Just got a report out of Greene County now that we have trees down in golf ball size hail, which goes pretty well with what we were kind of feeling that the storm could be producing. You know, here's the thing, tornado or not, I've been in up to softball size hail as a storm chaser, and I can tell you it is a horrendous thing to have to deal with. I think that this thing's going to produce golf balls, and golf balls are large enough to damage vehicles. So if you live right now near Greensburg, you've got to get your vehicles, you know, let's think down the line now. Milltown, Cane Valley, you got to get those vehicles inside. You're running out of time. Vehicles need to be inside in Columbia. I would not take the risk. Columbia tends to get some pretty large hail from some of these storms that are rotating, so you got to get those vehicles inside.
And it does seem like the hail may become the largest threat with the storm. That rotation not quite what it was. Rick's he's over here on our analyst. Let's take a look at what you've got, Rick.
Yeah, Rick, what are you seeing from a rotation standpoint on the storm?
First, we're going to start with the hail perspective, and you can see inside the actual tornado warning we have a lot of large hail, and I just want to give you some of those roads that might be dealing with that hail at the moment. Greensburg Road, that one jumps out immediately, and then basically traveling anywhere along Roachville Road. That's another location you have to probably watch out for some of that hail. And then down further, as we look along Pelham Branch Road, that's one where you could probably, if you can do it quickly, get your car inside. And 61 down in Kentucky. Areas like Columbia, Cane Valley, Milltown, those are the locations that are in the path of this storm. You will see it shortly, so get ready for the hail, the gusty winds, the lightning, and the heavy rain.
And we got a big problem with the hail in that storm. Just got a report here from Ronnie Dooley, which is an emergency manager along the Taylor-Greene County line, that they're reporting now ping-pong to baseball-size hail. So there's multiple threats here that we're dealing with, but that hail threat, Jeremy mentioned it just a moment ago, and Jeremy's going over to our wall here. Jeremy, baseball-sized hail, I mean, that's enough to smoke vehicles.
It is. You know, we don't see that very often around here. In the plains, it happens all the time. I spent a few years in Kansas. It was fairly common, and it can be devastating. If that does move over your location, your house, you're going to be replacing roofs and major damage to automobiles as well, a possibility with that. This is what we're looking at here, tornado warned area for portions of southern and western Taylor County. That's a good chunk of Greene County, but also the threat is there for hail. You can see we've got our hail scope tool, and if we could put a label on that, I know it was estimating like 3 inches. Now, normally it will overdo hail size a little bit, but even if you cut that in half, you're still talking about golf ball sized hail. So golf ball to perhaps even baseball sized hail, that's going to be moving very close to the town of Greensburg. We're putting a track on that storm cell for you. Again, this is a multifaceted storm. It's got all types of threats. In addition to the possibility of a tornadic rotation, there's a possibility of large hail with this. We had wind reports of 60 to 65 miles per hour. So even if you're able to avoid the tornado or the possible tornado, you've got major problems to deal with in the possibility of both, again, damaging hail and severe winds. There's, again, that hail core located just to the north of the Greensburg area. I believe that's US 68 that goes from Campbellsville to Greensburg. So that hail core located right on top of you. That threat is going to move south, and eventually it's going to make its way into the Adair County area.
And Jeremy, here's a look at some of the rotation here. Last time we talked, rotation was really intense. It does look like it's starting to become a little more diffuse.
You know, you can see you have bright colors indicating we've got strong winds, but the bright reds and the bright greens are not right there together. You see how they're kind of diffuse. That indicates that that storm is fanning out. These are straight line winds more likely than not. But again, 60 to 65 mile an hour winds, that's enough to do some damage.
Agreed. And by the way, the National Weather Service just issued a correction, or I should say the emergency manager, that he said instead of baseball-sized hail, he said he meant to say golf ball-sized hail. So we got a correction to that. Golf ball to ping-pong-sized hail, which again, all you really need is ping-pong-sized hail to do damage in the vehicles. We just got a tornado now. It's officially now reported on the ground, isn't it? We've got confirmed trees down
east of Greensburg.
Okay, the Weather Service, as of 5:11 here.
It said no tornado observed, but damage observed.
Well, on that, it's okay. The Weather Service issued what's referred to as a tornado warning with an observed tornado. The reason I mention this is different than a normal tornado. Weather Service went on to clarify here that they're using the observed tag simply because damage was observed. We have no official confirmation of a tornado right now.
I don't know if I agree with that.
It's an unusual one. I mean, if you have a rotation going over a specific area, and you're under a tornado warning and you see rotation, I guess that is an odd one. I can't argue that. That's definitely an unusual one.
But it's definitely a storm not to mess with. We know that. It's got several threats with it, including large hail possibility, straight line winds possibility. You get beyond that rotation, and obviously a lot of rain as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to go through that if you guys could. I want to read actually what they've got the Weather Service in here, because this is kind of an unusual tag there in using the tornado observed. Law enforcement confirmed trees down and golf ball size hail with this storm is what they're saying. The storm is located just off to the east of Greensburg, moving south at 25 miles an hour. They use the observed tornado tag. Clearly, they're not saying in their information that there is a confirmed tornado, despite the fact that they're using hazard as a damaging tornado and golf ball size hail. Kind of an interesting one, like I said, but nonetheless, they're not confirming a tornado on the ground right now, although they're using that tag. I mention only simply because this one may be confusing. For what it's worth, this really is the only show in town, Jeremy. We're really not talking about anything until later tonight. You know, I know in Louisville, people are wondering, other areas, should I expect severe weather in my area? Reality here is not right now. But during the overnight hours, the answer is yes. I do think we are going to see severe weather during the overnight hours tonight. I think that's going to become a greater threat. Louisville, we're thinking probably about, give or take a couple of hours around 2 a.m. when we see all those lines off to the north and west moving in our direction.
It's going to get complicated later on this evening. A lot of ingredients in place for the possibility of a major squall line. I know the term derecho has been thrown around the last few days. Not sure if we're going to see a storm of that scope, but definitely that potential is there for widespread winds. We've got Rick DeLuca heading over to the wall to give you a better reference of exactly where this storm is located and with respect to Louisville, Rick.
All right, so let's start out Green, Taylor, and Adair County, just so you kind of know where we are down in southern Kentucky. Here is the tornado warning. If you live inside that red box, you have to be in your safe place. If you have a basement, that's by far the best place to be. But if you do not have a basement, put as many walls as you can between you and the storm system. Just to give you some locations, areas like Greensburg, along 68, traveling along Gresham, you're at Cane Valley. You're not in that tornado warning, but this will continue down to the south and basically to the east. So Adair County, there is no tornado warning for you at the moment. However, I want you to prepare ahead because this storm is moving pretty rapidly, around 30 to 40 miles an hour. So you could be under that warning shortly if it indeed holds together. So let's track it off to the south and to the east. Columbia, 7 minutes. Russell Springs, 23 minutes away from you. And if you live in Jamestown, in about a half hour or so, as this storm gets a little closer to you, you're going to have to deal with the potential for a tornado, some large hail, a lot of gusty winds, heavy rain and lightning. Of course, we know that goes along with any thunderstorm. So right now we're keeping a very close eye on our southern edge counties, Hart, Greene, Taylor, Adair County. More specifically, Greene County is the one that you really have to watch out for some of that rotation, a potential tornado in some of those locations. Guys, what are you seeing over there on the velocities?
Well, you know what, it's actually a good thing. I was thinking about going over and spending a little time on Storm View 3D here with looking at that. And what I want to do in this one is talk a little bit specifically about the rotation center and what it looks like on radar. The rotation here has gotten more diffuse. Now, if you're wondering why the tornado warning here is purple, this is the reason what I was mentioning a little bit earlier. Purple means an observed tornado, and this is a different tag than a regular tornado warning. The Weather Service has kind of been clear in the fact that they use this simply because damage occurred where the rotation was. I get that it's confusing. Just mention it for what it's worth. But the area of rotation, we're going back here a few scans, and notice the greens and reds are really close to each other. And then as we start to come towards the future, watch as you see it going south of Greensburg, they start to spread just a little bit here. So regardless, it still has the potential to produce a tornado here. We're talking just off to the east of Greensburg by about 3/4 of a mile. I need you in your tornado safe places right now if you live in Greensburg. It's not the time to come outside and look, hey, what's that in the sky? This is not that time. This is the time where you want to go into your safe spot. I am concerned in the Milltown area that the rotation is going to come right down towards your area, so we need to watch that as well. And then Cane Valley, the rotation would be just a little bit off towards your west. This is the latest rotation here. Still greens, reds indicating one area of rotation. What do you guys think? It looks to me like we may be generating a second area of rotation here near Greensburg. Jeremy, if you could, let me see reflectivity because I assume this whole thing's now embedded in rain.
Yeah, it is. It's completely rain wrapped.
Okay, so now this is a scenario, even if you do have a tornado that's touching down, you can't see it. I mean, you can't see it. I can mention it because I know there's a tendency to look outside. This should at least give you the tendency to not. You're not going to see anything. The area of rotation right now, a couple near the Greensburg area. Hail is going to be a real issue on this, and Jeremy's going to show us this storm. This is what we refer to as a 3D perspective here. You can kind of see the top of that storm going to around 54,000 feet. So these are pretty solid storms. Jeremy, if you could, let me take that guy full. I'm curious about a hail core, if we're seeing any elevated hail and if that is going to come down and become a real issue. You can just kind of maximize that. So here's looking at where we're looking at is the purple here. Definitely a small hail core, somewhat elevated. It looks like it's lofted and coming down just off to the east of the Greensburg area. Overall storms peaking at around 56,000 feet right now. Keep going, Jeremy. I just want to see the rest of the storm as you go back. Okay, now let's sweep the other way. Okay, good news here is we're not looking at any gigantic elevated hail core, but I do think we're talking about potentially quarter to maybe even golf ball size hail just off to the east of the Greensburg area. Continuing to watch these storms, tornado warnings in effect for another few minutes here until 6:25. And just want to let Jessica, our producer, know, Jess, if we do get this tornado warning to expire at 6:25, we'll come back over to Lindsay and David. So we're watching this, and as we find out from the National Weather Service, we'll then give you an idea here. Looking at the latest here, and Rick, still looking at that, you're looking at what we refer to as normalized rotation. We all do a little bit of analysis when we're working at the station here. Rick, I'm coming over to you on the analyst here. Let me know what you're seeing from a rotation standpoint.
It looks like just down to the south and to the east of Greensburg, we still have that little green dot, and we say green means go. If you are under that, there is the potential for a tornado. But compared to how it was a little bit earlier, it's not really the same. It doesn't have that same pronounced big green pop. So we're watching the potential for a tornado. But right now, we have no ground truth. No one's really seen it. We do have a lot of reports coming in of some wind damage in the area, gusts between 60 and 65 miles an hour, and also some larger hail. Hail has come down a little bit, too. I'm going to switch over to another perspective, and this will be looking inside the storm. And there's still quite a bit of hail, a large hail core, in fact, just to the south of the Greensburg area, right along 60, where it links up with Columbia Highway. Anyone who is traveling on those roads where that junction comes together, you're going to deal with a very strong, powerful thunderstorm putting down some large hail. So in those locations, you have to watch out. And this one, if it holds together, will continue to dive south and east. And I'm going to go back a couple of scans, watch how the hail core came up, and this is probably going to hold together here. So areas in, let's say, Milltown, Gradyville, even Columbia, get ready because this storm means business, and it is moving in your direction.
National Weather Service did just give some information here for what it's worth. First off, the Black Gnat area reported 65-mile-per-hour winds as the storm came across the area. Number two is the National Weather Service is saying that they're not going to go with a tornado warning anymore. They're going to move it over to a severe thunderstorm warning. So we just got that severe thunderstorm warning issued. Severe thunderstorm warning is now issued for Adair and Greene County, and they're going up to 70-mile-an-hour winds with hail to the size of golf balls. Spotters in the Taylor-Greene County line continue to report a lot of trees down. So whether a tornado formed or not is going to be something we'll find out tomorrow. But the storm is at least a damaging storm at best case scenario and produced a lot of tree damage between Greensburg and Taylorsville. The most dangerous part of the storm right now is near Gresham, near Cape Valley, and near Columbia. The main threat at this point is going to be hail and wind gusts to 70 miles per hour. We're going to continue to keep an eye on these storms. Since we've gone over to a severe thunderstorm warning, we'll return to David and Lindsay for news and have an update on this coming up in a few minutes.
Sounds good, guys. Like we said, we'll get to the news in just a moment, but first we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.